Kanishka Agiwal, who's the head of service lines at AWS. Very excited for this conversation as well. All right, we'll give everyone a second. And the session is going to be on the real world impact of generative AI in education. So again, going to that slightly next level.
Hey, morning everyone. My name is Kanishka Agiwal. I'm from AWS. I'm joined with Rahul Ranjan, who is the Chief Business Officer for BriBooks, also the co-founder. One of the things that we were looking through the presentation earlier, and I wanted to give you a short story. You saw some of those pictures that had those astronauts, and there was a film setting right behind. There's a very interesting story behind that. And this is really about how the human mind really thinks. So Salvador Dali, who was this impressionist artist back in Spain in those days, Salvador Dali liked a lot of horses. And a lot of his paintings were about horses. So it was just apt when DALL-E 2 dropped, which is essentially the tool that helped make those images. Somebody actually put out a prompt saying that, what if you could have horses on the moon? And essentially the first image that came off was of a horse and an astronaut riding the horse. It broke the internet for various reasons because people had memes going on top of that. Somebody said, what if the horse could jump over the moon, which was a sequence to the cow actually jumping over the moon, right? So the nursery rhyme that you have. So somebody actually mentioned that to fun meme saying that how does the astronaut have a gear that helps it breathe, but the horse doesn't have one. And the horse is without oxygen, and how can it survive? So there's a lot of that stuff going on. But post that, you could actually see how the human mind can be extremely creative about these things. So right from the art that got created to actually then on to practical application where somebody said, let's dissect a butterfly or get me the parts of a butterfly. And there was an image that came off with the entire butterfly and all of the biological parts or anatomically the butterfly labeled on it, to somebody then looking at a three-dimensional view of a large hall. And they said, what if the Sphinx and the pyramids were put together back in the 3000 BC or 2000 BC era, whatever that was. And how did it look back then? So the lighting effects and the visualization and all of that was, again, something that just opened up what DALL-E 2 could do. And subsequently, the entire text to image to text sort of prompts started coming up, which you saw through all of those co-pilots that the previous presentation was talking about. And I think that's apt because some of the two predictions that the previous presentation actually made was that how do you generate content using tools such as these? And that's why I think, Rahul, maybe you should tell us what actually got you thinking about BriBooks, because BriBooks is a fantastic way of unleashing imagination and putting that to a written and handheld form.
Thanks, Kanishka. So, two things. Our conversations with school leaders and parents told us that we need to get school kids back to leisurely reading and writing. That's one. The other bit is from a process perspective, creative writing, while it's a creative thinking is a skill of future, but creative writing would typically be limited to a set of kids who are presumed to be great with English language. So we wanted to break that. We wanted to ensure that if a child has a thought, an idea in mind, he should be able to get a platform where he or she can translate that into a story. So that's how BriBooks was born.
Tell me something more on, once you conceptualize the idea of BriBooks, right? There's also that little bit of a curve of, hey, there are multiple publishing platforms out there. What made BriBooks stand out? Did you start off as a publishing platform, or did you start off as a content creation platform? And hey, publishing was just an offshoot of it.
So publishing is something that is a byproduct of what happens in BriBooks. So we primarily look at ourselves, and have always been, we're built on AWS, you guys, right? So we've always looked at ourselves as a creative writing platform and not really a publishing platform. Publishing happens as a one-click process, is an amazing byproduct, but primarily we are a writing platform which is highly personalized.
Now, given the given that you have got a footprint that is across the world, right? And you've got people, children especially, writing in the US, writing in India, also in Israel and other places. How have you seen this actually make an impact on multiple fronts? One, unleash student creativity or child creativity in writing a particular book. But beyond the book, has it made people to buy that book because they want to read it? Has it made them buy a book because the child has been so creative and it's a very different genre of books, which is kids writing for kids? Or has it also had a societal impact, or is it all three of them?
So I'll split this into three parts, right? One is impact from an overall user-based perspective, right? So 15 months in the market, 500,000 authors, young authors from about 26 plus countries. Obviously, India is 90% of that number, a very large number. So that's one. The other bit around impact, right? So typically you would see, social impact being a byproduct of what you would do, and that would never be a primary business driver for us, right? Or a business like this. However, we have amazing examples. So I think I can take her name, young author, 11-year-old from Mumbai, Kia Hatkar. She suffers from a life-threatening disease called SMA, which is spinal muscular atrophy. She's been able to raise close to $100,000 for her treatment because she's now a published author. Her first book, Dancing on My Wheels, it's basically a story which she talks about the fact that she's wheelchair bound, and yet she was able to participate in a dance competition in her school. It's a bestseller now. So but going back to one of the other questions that you had, do all of them become bestsellers? No. I mean, most of the folks who buy these are friends, family, loved ones. But a select few of those do go on to become bestsellers in their own right. And if these authors are able to solve real life problems for themselves, like Kia is a good example. There's another kid who is battling cancer in the US, brain cancer, again, 12-year-old. He is setting up a fund where he would use his book to raise money to help cover his costs. The third bit, which is something that we want to build on very strongly, which is books written by kids for kids. So the primary year age group is where you have a very large gap of books not being available, which are appropriate in the local cultural context. So imagine being in a place probably a year from now where you would have close to about 2,000 amazing books written by kids, for kids, available for that primary age group of kids between 5 to 10. And all of these would be locally relevant, contextually relevant, culturally relevant. So that's the other bit which you would see a lot of BriBooks, books written by BriBooks author in the market next year, for sure.
So I want to pick on that, where you said locally relevant, contextually relevant books or content that is created. And that is one of the pitfalls generally when you have content that is generated from a GPT sort of a model, right? Because you could have very similar content created, possibly different words, but similar content created. What have you done as far as your implementations are concerned, where you say, look, the content that is now getting created is more contextually relevant to what the child is intending to write? I mean, are you considering his demographics? Are you considering his age? Or any of those parameters that are being considered, or do you have a custom sort of a model that helps you do this, which is different from the rest of the co-pilots out there?
Sure. So I wish I could do a demo here, but we've not brought the demo video here. So if I can do a quick 2-minute user journey. So if an author, imagine an 8-year-old or 10-year-old going on the platform, the first thing that they would do is pick up the right kind of theme that they want to write on, right? And they can always switch the theme. So for example, India, cricket is a very popular sport in India. So a kid picks up cricket as a theme. So the theme becomes one input. Then obviously you have the age, the grade of the kid being an analog for the age. And then you have the geography of the kid, that gives you the local context. And then as the kid starts writing, the idea is not to spoon feed the kid, but the idea is to give them, help them break the writer's block. To start with, help them with 4 or 5 options to pick and choose from based on the different inputs that BriBoo has. BriBoo is, by the way, the name of the bot which helps kids write. So BriBoo then starts with 3 or 4 suggestions where the kid has the option of picking up one of those or not pick up any of those and start writing on their own. So that's one. As the book progresses, BriBoo then switches to open-ended questions. For example, if one of the questions can be, in your story, what is Rahul, the lead character, doing? Right? Where are you? What's the location? Geographically, physically, where are you based right now? Are you driving? Are you traveling? And so on. So a combination of these actually solves for the problem of no two author having similar content. In fact, if you read books, I think we currently are looking at out of 500,000 authors, we have close to 250,000 published books already, and the other 250,000 must be right in the different stages of writing. I don't think any 2 books would be similar from that large a sample size.
Wow. Okay. Now, you did show me something on a leaderboard just before we got in here, right? And just for the audience, there's a fantastic leaderboard that he showed me, and he said it's going to blow up in the next 5 days. Explain to us what that blow up is going to be.
Right. So we in India specifically, we have an annual event called the National Young Authors Fair, right? And we have some of the best schools from India participating in that event where kids write their books. We have 2 different set of categories there. One is obviously the jury award, where some of the best authors from around the world come on board as jury. They would give away awards based on how they look at the book. There's something called a bestseller award. And I think if we look at the average that the top 100 bestsellers would sell during the book writing festival, the average last year was 2,200. This year, when I said it will explode, I am looking at, in the morning we saw the top number being at 1,800. I think next 5 days we should be looking at a 3,000 number, right? So the kids actually, and it's almost like kids learning how to be entrepreneur authors and not just authors. So they do go out and create the right set of partnerships with local libraries, with their school libraries, with communities at large. There are other social communities, either on Facebook, Telegram, WhatsApp, and so on. And they are able to write summaries of their book, promote, create short videos about their book. Why should somebody buy their book? Why should an 8-year-old buy a book? Because a book written by a 10-year-old has amazing illustrations in it, right? So yes, when I say it will explode, it would explode not because of the fact that BriBooks is helping them market it, but we have been able to help them with specific tools which helps them become entrepreneur authors, and they are able to create amazing impact in terms of sales.
Fantastic. I should add on this, right? You're right now fueling something which had been dwindling for quite some time in the educator space, which is a lot of consumption of literature has been on a decline over the last several years because of just the proliferation of social media, short attention span, the ability for you to not consume anything that is beyond those 140 characters or possibly a 30-second or a 45-second video. So I think it's a welcome change that children are now able to write a long prose sort of format, or are also able to consume that long prose kind of thing. My last question to you is going to be more on the educator side. Mm-hmm. Are we seeing any of these tools actually help and aid in learning, and any of the other, impact for a child as far as their literary and cognitive capabilities are concerned?
Do we have, are we measuring that impact? No, not yet. That's something that's in pipeline. But from a learner's perspective. But from an educator's perspective, BriBooks, especially in some of the more progressive schools, has become an in-class tool for creative writing workshops, right? So that's there. But on the learner side, we would have measurable matrix-driven impact assessment happening on a baseline and a current learning level in terms of creative writing. That should be rolled out next year for sure.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rahul. Pleasure
Thanks,
speaking to you.
Kanishka.
Great insightful discussion on this.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much.